it's Andy. So as I said in my last video, today I'm going to be filming my N.E.W.T.s TBR. So I am one of those people that's a completionist, so I've done the O.W.L.s, so now I want to do the N.E.W.T.s just to finish everything off. But along with G, she's not really, that's Book Gross on YouTube, she's not really that keen on sticking very much to the N.E.W.T.s just because of how everything's gone with J.K. Rowling. So it's kind of all up in the air, which means that I've kind of thrown a bit of the rulebook out the window. So I've got all 36 books for all 36 prompts, and I will be going through telling you what my TBR is. I have already started because the rules have gone, like I say, out the window. So hopefully I'll be able to do all 36. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've got my very messy bullet journal here, and I've done it by what the class is and the prompts for your A, E and O. So I'll just quickly explain the N.E.W.T.s. So the way the N.E.W.T.s works is for every class you have 3 different prompts for 3 different grades. For example, for Ancient Runes you've got your A grade, followed by your E grade, followed by your O grade. I can't quite remember what they all mean, doesn't really matter. You just, to get your E you need to have read your A, to get your O you need to have read your E and your A, basically. The N.E.W.T.s do come with a handout that is, it's got wizarding careers in it, and what people normally do is they choose a career, gives you the grades that you need to get that career, and that's what you read. Me on the other hand, because I'm just off my head, I read every prompt for the O.W.L.s and I want to read every prompt for the N.E.W.T.s. It will also help me get through my TBR, because every book on this is a book from my TBR, and almost all of them I've not read before. So yeah, so I'll be using this to help me guide my way through. So starting with Ancient Runes, for the A grade, the prompt is read a book whose author name, first or last, begins with the letter B. For this I chose Never Fade by Alexandra Bracken. I read The Darkest Minds a while ago, probably I think actually at the start of the year, or maybe last year, just at the end of the year, and haven't continued it despite the fact that I have all the books. So this is one I'll be trying to get to, and yes, a lot of the books are thick, which is great for a readathon. But yeah, like I say, the rules have gone out the window. As long as they're done by the end of the year, G is happy. So this is one that I'll be trying to get to. For your E, the prompt is to read a classic. And for this I have gone with Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I've had this for a while. I've had multiple copies of this because it's one of my mum's favourites. I've seen the movie, the old one, not the new one, and I've still not read it. So now I've got this beautiful edition. Now I've got this beautiful edition, I feel like the time is now to read it. Little Women is about, funnily enough, young women who live with their mother in America, and their father, I believe, is away to war, so it's just kind of a story about them living in the home, 4 daughters, 1 mother, and also they end up befriending the, I can't remember, the son or the grandson of their next door neighbour, and getting involved in that, and then just sort of daily life. The next prompt is read a romance. So that's for your O grade, and I've chosen The Witch's Kiss by Catherine and Elizabeth Corr. I got this book, I don't really want to say when I got this book, it's been a while, and again I have all the books and I've not picked it up, so great for a readathon to finally get to the books that I want to get to. So this is about Mary, who is just your average teenager, except she's also a witch. And it's about her meeting a boy named Jack and falling in love with him. But there's a curse, and so before they can be together, Mary has to break the curse. Sounds interesting, works for a romance. And then I also have 2 more in the trilogy to actually get to. On to the next subject. The next subject is arithmancy. So for your A grade for this one, it is read a non-fiction. I don't usually have many non-fictions on my TBR, it's not something I usually read, but I picked this up just last week or the week before, and that is The Story of Egypt by Joanne Fletcher. Yeah. And this basically just covers the story of Egypt. It goes back 4,000 years and looks at the history of Egypt, and the author herself is a historian of Egyptian culture, etc. So since I've always been really interested in Egypt for as long as I can remember, I feel like this is going to be a really interesting read, and I'm really interested. It's part of educational reading that I'm putting myself through, because African, Middle Eastern, things that aren't European Central history are things that aren't taught in schools, I was never taught about, that I've had to actively seek out to find out, to learn. So this is part of that education for me. Next prompt for the E grade in arithmancy is read a book which ends on an uneven page number. For this I picked Delirium by Lauren Oliver. Again, had this one for ages, been sitting on my TBR, but this finishes on page 393, if this will focus. Nope, but I promise, ends on a round number, so it fits the bill. I don't actually know what this is about, but it has been recommended to me, so see. The next prompt for the O grade is read a book with between 216 and 299 pages. Again, rule book out the window, so I am cheating a bit on this one. So I'm using this for 2, so it's the Vampire Diaries, The Fury and the Reunion by L.J. Smith. So technically this is a bind up of 2 different books. So the first book, The Fury, ends partway through the book, so that works for this challenge. And this is, everybody's probably seen the Vampire Diaries or heard of the Vampire Diaries. It's fairly different from the TV show because they took the characters, the place names, and kind of went with it. But this is the 3rd and 4th book bind up. So it'll be the 3rd book that I'm reading. I've already read earlier this year the 1st and 2nd. These are all rereads because I wanted to reread it for some reason. I just had the urge to reread it, so I'm rereading it. The next subject is astronomy, and for the A grade, the prompt is read a book with a star on the cover or in the title or in the series name. And for this I've picked up The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I did start this book a while ago. I got 34 pages in and didn't really like it, but I think I was just not in the mood to read it. So I'm going to give it another go. If I don't like it, I don't like it, but it does come highly recommended, so I want to give it another try. So yeah, so The Night Circus is about a circus that just appears unprecedented, and that's all I really know about it. I didn't quite enjoy the start of it, but I'll give it another try. Next prompt for your E grade is read a science fiction book. So for this I've chosen Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth. I was up and down about getting this book because I've heard some bad things about it, but I really liked Veronica Roth's other novels, so I really wanted to give it a try and see what I thought, rather than just base it on what other people think. I am a huge Divergent fan, but because of that I do want to give this a try. Again, I'm not sure what this is about, but different planet, sci-fi, yeah. The next prompt for your O grade is to read the biggest book on your TBR. Biggest book in my TBR is The Host by Stephanie Meyer. I have seen the movie and I loved the movie. I thought it was a great concept, a great idea of how these beings cope. So it's about these sort of aliens that come to Earth, and to survive, so they're not a physical being, they are an essence, a consciousness, and to survive they need to have a host. And you can tell who has someone in their body by this ring that you get, a silver ring that shows the consciousness that's taken over the body. And there's a faction of humans who do not like this, and they're trying to hunt these humans down, and one of the beings gets kind of caught in one of the bodies of one of these humans and gets to see the duality of how these humans are living, and is it right for them to take over the bodies, etc. So again, this is when I've started, and it was just a bit slow, so I'll give it another go. Might just not have been in the mood for reading it, so I'll give it a try. On to the next subject is Care of Magical Creatures, and the prompt for the A grade is read a book with fire on the cover or in the title or series name, and this is where I'm cheating again. So back to this, fourth book, The Reunion, is what I'm going to read for this, because there's a candle on the front, that's fire, I'm counting it, nobody cares. I'm making my own rules. So this is the one I'm going to use for that prompt, and I'll probably be able to just read it all through at once, and two birds, one stone. Next prompt for the E grade is read a short book or a graphic novel or a comic. So for this one I am not a graphic novel or comic reader really, so for this one I went on to decide on a short book, which is Etiquette and Espionage. For me, I think it's a short book. It's not. It's only just over 300 pages, and I'm used to reading books that are verging on the 600 page mark. So for me, this is a short book. This was really popular on BookTube quite a while ago, and I've not heard anything about it since. I bought it when it was popular, and then, as we all do, did not read it. So I'm not entirely sure what it's about. I feel like it's like an etiquette school where they teach them how to be spies and assassins, which sounds really interesting. I really liked the Glittering Court, and that had elements of, we're going to teach girls who are not ladies how to be ladies. I found the concept really interesting, so hopefully this will also be interesting. And then the O grade for Care of Magical Creatures is start a book with a snack. So I could have chosen any book for this, but I just went for books that were on my TBR so that I could get them out of the way. And the book I chose is The Help by Catherine Stockett. I bought this recently in a mistaken urge to learn more for the Black Lives Matter movement, without actually checking that when I googled and searched for black authors telling black stories, didn't realise this is not a black author, although it is a black story, but it is a story of a white girl growing up around a black story. So it's not aimed at the black characters, but again, I love the film, and it is important to know these stories. I've seen reviews where black kids have said, like, this is the story that my grandmother lived, it is still important. It is still important to get different angles, and I know, because it's a white author, not a black author, not on voices, to take it with a pinch of salt, and read more than just this, so I'll read around it. Next subject is charms, and the A grade is to read a funny book. Unfortunately, not many of my books I would classify as funny. They're all sort of leaning towards being dystopians or things that aren't exactly happy or funny, and then others that are left on my TBR are some mysteries and thrillers, which don't think anybody would call them funny. And they're left on my TBR because they're the ones that I struggle to read, so I haven't read as much. So I've gone for a good old little classic, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Nice short read as well, which is actually great for a readathon. This is probably my favourite Roald Dahl. I absolutely love Fantastic Mr. Fox. No, I have not seen the movie, don't talk to me about it. This book is fantastic. The illustrations are, as always, beautiful, and I think it's really funny. I always thought this was really funny, about the animals outsmarting the cruel, dumb farmers. So yeah, funny book. It's good. For the E level, the prompt is read a book set in winter, which was hard because not all of them have when they were set in the book in the synopsis, so I kind of had to guess a little bit. But one I've chosen is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. Now this one is one that Reagan at Peruse Project usually raves about. I believe that it's maybe set in the winter due to the snow on the ground in the photo, on the cover. And if not, I believe it goes over the course of Vasia's life. So I'm assuming that if it's going over the course of her life, at one point there will be winter in this. And again, we're not really caring too much about the rules. I'm not entirely sure. I really like to go into books without really knowing what they're about. So I don't know enough about that to really talk about it, but hopefully it'll be good. Now the next prompt I had an issue with, which is your O for your charms, and that is to read a manga. I don't read manga, I don't read comic books, I don't own comic books or manga, but thankfully my brother-in-law reads manga. But for this I've got One Punch Man, which is just the manga that was handed to me. So I will struggle with this because it's a manga and it's backwards, but there doesn't seem to be much writing, so hopefully I'll get through it quickly, and who knows, maybe I'll find a new appreciation for manga. Next subject is Defence Against the Dark Arts, and the prompt for the A grade is to read a horror or thriller, and this is a book I've been dying to read for about a week, and that's Wilder Girls by Rory Power. Kayla over at Books and Lala has been going on about this ever since she read it. I am not a horror or thriller reader, but this just seems too intriguing to not read, and it doesn't seem like the kind of horror that will keep me up at night. I am that person. After I watched Paranormal Activity, I had to sleep with the light on, so hopefully this will be less of that kind of horror. But this is about a school on an island, and they've been infected with the N.E.W.T.s, and it causes different things to happen to the girls, and then the main character, one of her friends goes missing, and then they embark to try and find her, and discover that the N.E.W.T.s is a bit more complicated and a bit more wider reaching than they thought. That's as far as I understand it, but yeah, we'll see. Next prompt for the E level, or the E grade, is read a book which contains water or demons. For this one I picked The German Girl by Armando Lucas Correa, and this is in Germany in Berlin 1939, before, it says before everything changed. So as you can see on the front, she's on a boat. I don't know if you can see that. She's on a boat with water around her, and she's on a ship. Our character's Hannah is on a ship, so that ship's on water. That's what I'm going to use. I really like historical fiction, and I really like World War II historical fictions, and this is interesting to me because it's from the perspective of someone in Berlin rather than what I'm used to, which is someone from the UK, someone from America, etc. So it'll be an interesting read. The next prompt for the O grade is to read an epic fantasy. Again, not really an epic fantasy reader, but there's one book on my TBR, one book that I've still to read, which will count for this, and that is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. It is the last one I have to read. I've read The Hobbit, I've read the first two, this is it. This series has almost killed me. So this is just the conclusion to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is a chunker, it is archaic language, and it is high fantasy, and I really struggle with it. But what I've been doing is listen to the audiobooks with while reading along, and that seems to help a lot. So yeah, wish me luck. Next class is divination, and the A grade for that, the prompt is read a book with a red cover. Didn't have much, didn't have many covers that would fit this, so what I've gone for is wool. This was recommended to me by one of the guys that works in Waterstones, because I was looking, I'd just finished Hunger Games, Divergent, that sort of thing, and I was hungry for another dystopian, and this is what he recommended. So red, I would count that as red, some orange but also red, so I'm going for it. I have not a clue what it's about. All I know is it's a dystopian, and a little, not a sticker on the front says the next Hunger Games. So next prompt for the E grade is read the first book you look at. So the one that I ended up picking up because I had them all laid out on the table and it was the first one that caught my eye was Trick of the Dark by Val McDermott. I should be ashamed that I haven't read more Val McDermott. She is from the same area as me, so I really should have been reading a bit more locally. She's also friends with Sue Black, who lectured at my university when I studied forensic science, so there are many reasons that I should have read Val McDermott, but again, not being a mystery thriller reader, that's why I haven't. So starting off with this one, and then I'll see where I go from there. Next prompt for the O grade is to start a book with loose leaf tea. Again, this is one I could have done for any book, so I just picked one that interested me. And I have loose leaf tea in the kitchen, a little teapot to put it in, so that would be nice because I've not had loose leaf tea for a while. And the book I chose for that is The Visitors, and that's by Simon Sylvester. Again, this is one that I have started. This is why I can't find any bookmarks, they're in books that I've already started. But this is about an island called Bancree, and people have been disappearing, and yeah, so the main character has lived on this island. It's always seemed to be a safe place, and now all of a sudden people are disappearing, and the killer may be someone on the island. It seemed interesting. I wanted to read more to do with the UK. This is just one of the ones that I picked up, so we'll see. Our next subject is herbology, and the A grade for that, the prompt is read a book with flowers on the cover. And for this I picked something that is fairly obvious, even the name is a flower, and it's Black-Eyed Susans. So Black-Eyed Susans are these yellow flowers with a black bit in the middle. This is a mystery about girls who have been found in graves, murdered, and the murder left Black-Eyed Susans on the graves. The killer's about to be executed, but the main character Tessa feels no relief. She is one of his victims that survived, and she believes that he is not the killer, so she goes on a quest to find who is the killer. Next prompt is for the E grade, which is read an impactful book, preferably own voices. So for this is one that I've already read, and I listened to it on audio. It was a 24-hour audiobook, so it has to be a hefty book, and I really do want to buy it once I can get to the local Waterstones. And that is Black and British by David Olusoga. Possibly got that pronunciation wrong. It is about the history of black people in Britain. Now, I had no idea, but there have been graves of black Britons found from the time of the Romans. A lot of people in Britain believe that black people came over on the Windrush and that's how we got our black population, but black people have been present in British society for thousands of years. They've played a part in so much of our culture for thousands of years, and we are completely unaware because we're not taught about it, we're not told about it, and all we're told are fairly racist outlooks on it, if anything, and a lot of the time our history just doesn't mention them. Nobody, until I read this, not a clue did I have that there were black pilots and black soldiers during World War II. World War II! But yeah, so I absolutely recommend that. It was fantastic. The author does have a TV series on, or a TV miniseries on BBC iPlayer called Black and British, which is basically the TV version of this book, which I also plan to watch. So the next prompt for the O grade in herbology is read a book longer than the previous read. So I've chosen In the Afterlight by Alexandra Bracken, which follows on from Never Fade, and I just need to make sure that I read this after a book that is shorter than it, and it's a big book so that shouldn't be too hard, but I really want to get this series finished, so hopefully this will help. Next subject is History of Magic, and the first prompt for the A grade is read a historical fiction. I have those coming out my ears, so that's not hard. The one I've chosen is The Red Queen by Philippa Gregory. Next prompt for the E grade is read a book with a mainly black cover. And again, late to the party, I've chosen The Maze Runner, as you can see, mainly black cover. This is a series I meant to start ages ago and never actually did. It's dystopian. It's, as far as I understand it from watching part of the film, Thomas, the main character, wakes up and he's in the centre of a maze, or part of a maze, and the boys already there are too scared to go into the maze because there are creatures, etc. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I remember from watching part of the film. But I love dystopian, so hopefully this will live up to everything else. Next prompt is for the O grade, and that is read a book recommended by an older person. This one I've chosen Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde. This was recommended to me by a co-worker who actually got me this copy for Secret Santa, and she is just a couple of months older than me, so it still counts. She's not excessively older than me, but she's still older than me, so it still counts. And this is about a world where the colour that you are determines your social status, and the greys are at the very bottom of the heap. This is about Eddie, who is an above average red, who wants to move up the ladder, but then he meets Jane, who is a lowly grey, who has anger issues and wants to see him killed. Eddie falls in love with her at first sight, but this then leads him to discover that the world is not all in colour, sometimes it's in shades of grey. Next subject is Muggle Studies, and the A prompt for this is read a comic. Again, I've said at least 3 times already, I don't really read comics, I don't own comics. Thankfully my wife had one comic that I can read and count towards the challenges, and that is Simpsons on Parade. I don't know why she's got it. I don't know what it's about. I'm assuming The Simpsons as part of a parade. I like The Simpsons, I've watched The Simpsons, so hopefully it'll be fun. Next prompt for the E level is or the E grade, sorry, is to read a book written by an author of a different race. And for this I chose Children of Vengeance and Virtue by Tomi Adeyemi, with this beautiful blue sprayed edges, which is the Waterstones exclusive. I also have the Waterstones exclusive of Children of Blood and Bone, which has a red sprayed edges. This is a follow-on from Children of Blood and Bone, which is a story based around West African mythology, and about magic and people who are born with magic who have been eradicated, and magic has been eradicated, and they are on a quest to bring back magic before it completely disappears and can no longer be recovered. I didn't really like Children of Blood and Bone, but again I think I read that when I wasn't in the mood to read it, because although I felt like I didn't like it when I read it, I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I'm excited to see what happens next. Next prompt for the O grade is read a contemporary. Again, this is one that I've already read, and again I read it on audiobook, and that is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I have not read any books by her before, simply because most of her books I believe are in verse, and that's not something that I generally tend to read, although this year I've read 2 books in verse and loved them, so I think I need to give it a fair shot, and I really enjoyed Clap When You Land. Clap When You Land is about 2 girls who discover that they have the same father when a plane goes down, and they identify the body and tell the families about his death. They then discover that he actually had 2 families, 2 children, one in the Dominican Republic where he is from, and one in the USA. This is based on a true event. This was a flight that went down around about the time of 9/11, so when it was discovered that it wasn't a terrorist attack, it was then overshadowed by the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So it's bringing a highlight to that accident, and it devastated people in the Dominican Republic because it was a flight going into the Dominican Republic with mostly Dominican passengers on board. So the next subject is potions, and the A grade for that is read a book with the sky on the cover, or sky in the title, or in the series name. For that I've chosen The Betrayal by Kate Furnell. As you can see, there's the sky in the background as she's looking out of a balcony. This is based in Paris in 1938, and it's about Romaine, who is a pilot, and her sister Florence, who is a socialite. And everything sort of changes once World War II hits, and it follows the sisters, and you find out what happens to them. The next prompt for the E grade is read a book whose author's name begins with D. Again, that's first or second name. And this I chose Wind Witch by Susan Dennard. I am in the middle of reading this, I'm about halfway through, and this is the follow-up to Truth Witch, which I really enjoyed, and I wish I just read this straight away, but I didn't, so now I am, and so far I am enjoying it. Prompt for the O grade is read a book over 450 pages, and for that I'm just following up Truth Witch and Wind Witch with Blood Witch, which is the final book in the series, and that will just tie things up nicely for me. We're on to the last class, and that is Transfiguration, and the prompt for the A grade is read a book with an animal on the cover or the animal name in the title, and I've gone for both, and that's The Secret Life of Bees. Again, this is another one that I bought thinking that it was an own voices author, and I was wrong, although it's another one where it is set around a white girl growing up around black issues. So this is about Lily, who thought she'd killed her mother when she obviously hasn't. She was 4 years old when she died, and she befriends a group of women, black women, who own a home and they care for bees, and that's about as much as I know about it. I have again seen the movie, but I can't remember because it was so long ago, but hopefully this is as good as it's hyped up to be. The E grade for Transfiguration, the prompt is read a book with dragons or fire on the cover or in the title. I did struggle with this one and ended up with a reread of the Kane Chronicles, so everything in the background there is on fire. So yeah, the pyramids on fire, that's great. So this follows Sadie and Carter Kane, who are siblings whose family has something to do with Egyptian mythology. Don't want to say too much because it is a good book to get into, and I've not read it in so long I don't know what's spoilery and what's not. This is a Rick Riordan, so it's like Percy Jackson but with Egyptian mythology instead of Greek. And the last prompt, so this is the O for Transfiguration, and that is read a hardcover or a book that is hard to read. For this I chose The Taxidermist's Daughter by Kate Moss. It is a hardcover and it has also been really hard for me to get into. I have tried reading it before and struggled. Kate Moss is one of my favourite authors, but for some reason this book just doesn't seem to be permeating into my head. I really am not sure what it's about. I can only imagine a taxidermist's daughter. So that is my TBR for the N.E.W.T.s. That is 36 books that I plan to get to. Hopefully, I'm aiming for the end of August, but I think it'll possibly bleed over to the end of the year. 36 books is a lot to try and get through, but we're still in lockdown. I'm still not at work yet, so hopefully I can just get through them all. If you've gotten this far, congratulations, because it has been a long video. I am so sorry about the length. I am so sorry about how slowly I've been talking because I edited this halfway through, which is partially why the angle may have changed, or the lighting, because the man came to see the boiler and I had to stop filming. So yeah, so that's my N.E.W.T.s TBR. And if you have been looking at me the whole way through this thinking, Andy, aren't you roasting in that big jumper? Yes, I am. I am boiling, but I wanted to wear something that had Ravenclaw colours, but I didn't really want to try and buy anything because I'm still not, well, I don't want to buy any licensed products for Harry Potter, so got my blue in there. I'm looking forward to getting this jumper off and cooling down because it is roasting today. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you in my next video.